and welcome back to Wilbur Talks FPL episode 19, where we talk everything Fantasy Premier League and, of course, the Premier League in general. We are back on a Champions League night, not ideal for everyone, but you can always catch the recording after this. So, unfortunately, as it is Champions League night, Liverpool may happen to be playing. Me and Charlie don't have Champions League commitments as our teams do not feature. So you've got a two-man pod tonight. So welcome, Charlie. Unfortunately for us, no Champions League, but we can just about survive, can't we, without Sam?
Yeah, hopefully. I'm just grabbing onto the getting slimmer chance of getting the Champions League next season at least. So, let's hope.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll touch on that slightly, not too much, because I know, yes, it's slightly raw, less than 24 hours after, but we will touch on that. But if we just jump straight into it and let us know, Charlie, how your game week has gone. I know your game week is complete because you've got no Burnley or Everton players. So how has it gone for this game week?
Well, not very well, to be honest. It's the first time in a good start. It's the first time in a long time I've been under the average, just kind of not like massive issues. Like I don't. This is why I'm kind of happy with my overall idea of just getting in the players that I think are best long term. There are going to be some weeks where it just doesn't come off. So like obviously we had Salah didn't score. I brought in Reece James, like I said, I think I was going to do last week. And obviously he had to come. He came off the bench. He didn't start, which is a bit frustrating. But again, he's a long term pick, so I'm not that bothered about that. Spurs boys delivered at least, so that's something. Although obviously, in real football, that's not ideal. And Kieran Tierney picking up the injury, it looks like he's going to be out for the rest of the season, which is a bit frustrating because I had a plan to take him out, but it was going to be in a few weeks' time, so that may just force my hand a little bit into either a minus or just having a little rejig of my plan. So not an ideal week, but yeah, like I say, I'm because I played my wildcard early. I'm playing for the long, not exactly long haul because there's not as many game weeks left, but playing for a longer term. So yeah, you just take these weeks as they come, really.
Yeah, it's one of those ones you just try and avoid, don't you? But you always get a few within the season where like nothing really goes for you. I could just see that you've literally got Son that has kind of got all your points. I think a lot of people this week, just the defence probably had like 2 points in total, which is just a bit crazy. I did exactly the same as you, bought in James, and obviously same result with 0 points. I don't think many people were expecting Brentford to score 4, but we'll take that one on the chin. I was carried by one-off performances. Very similar to you. I had a different Spurs asset in Doherty. I know you meant to say that a lot better than that, but I think I mentioned, when did I bring him in? I think I brought him in about 29-30, and I said it to you and Sam at the time. I was like, it might not pay off straight away, but it will pay off over time, and it seems I'm getting it this week as well to help me out. So he got 14 points, which you cannot complain about when no other defenders are really scoring. And then the kind of player who just was left in my team because he wasn't the urgent issue, Jared Bowen. I was like, I'm going to play him because if he plays, he's West Ham's best attacker. And I was like, you didn't get a lot of kind of news about West Ham over the international break, but it was never really in my plans to transfer him out anyway because I knew he'd be back within a few weeks, especially with all the European commitments. I thought that game was perfect to give him some game time ready for Europa League. And luckily it happened, and I saw that he was training, I think, 2 days before. So I was like, I'm just going to start him. I did that with him and Trent. Because how my team is at the minute, I've got like a lot, well, not a lot, but quite a few players I don't mind benching. Like I had 3 Wolves players that I benched them all, which nearly backfired until they gave away a penalty. So I was happy risking playing Trent and Bowen, and obviously Bowen paid off decently. So I've got 48, and 37 of those was provided by those 2 players. So definitely getting carried. But I have got Vegas to play later in the week, so maybe 2 more points, probably 1, knowing this kind of average that he gets. So hopefully it rounds me up to 50 with a 2-pointer. We'll take that. And a decent little increase in rank, I think about 10k, 15k, so not too bad I think the Arsenal result yesterday was perfect for me with no Arsenal players, so I can't complain at that. Especially when Ramsdale was back, I was like, oh, not this little man stopping me every time. Like, he nearly even got himself a save point. I was like, don't you dare, when Palace had about 3 shots the whole game. But yeah, we avoided that one. I think for the first time in a while, we got away with an Arsenal fixture not going well for them. Slight progress on Sam, since though he's not here. Last pod he talked about a big contest in the Family League. I thought I'd take a sneak peek at the league, bearing in mind he's not here, and I've seen that he's fallen a few more points behind, and he's now 3 points behind in second. Both of them have got Regors to play, and Sam also has Pope. So he's 3 points behind with Pope is the difference, really. So he needs a big... you can just see it where Pope gets a 2-pointer and just leaves him 1 point behind, but you never know, could get a clean sheet. So it seems like it's all to play for there. I'm sure Sam will be doing some prayers for Pope. That sounds like very religious right there, but I'm sure he'll be hoping he does well on Wednesday, isn't it? I was thinking it was Thursday, but it's actually on Wednesday, isn't it, when the Champions League is on? But you're not going to avoid it, Charlie, I'm afraid. I'm going to talk about the results of the weekend. Brief, I think what you think about your chances now that obviously Tottenham slightly closer based on the results.
Yeah, I think it's clearly it wasn't a great night. I think first off you do have to give the credit to Palace before you even talk about Arsenal. They were just so good, like from the off, just all over Arsenal. And again, I think that their crowd makes such a difference. It's kind of known, isn't it, for kind of just being one of the best atmospheres in English football, at least. The Palace ground, and yeah, they just started so much on the front foot, absolutely all over us, and forced all the errors. So players that have been in such good form recently, like Partey and Odegaard, were just completely swamped. Had probably their worst games of the season. Which is all credit to Palace, really. And I can't remember the exact stat, but one key example of that was Gallagher, who it was in the first half, I think, that they brought up the stat where he actually hadn't had that many touches. I think he'd had as many touches as the Palace goalkeeper, but it's just how much energy he puts into everything, how many pressures he puts on the ball, and just his running is crazy. So... yeah, overall, obviously, like I say, disappointing night for Arsenal. But I think in this race for top 4, I would still count United out of it. I would say. I think both Arsenal and Spurs. This isn't the first of it. Both Arsenal and Spurs, or the last of it rather. Both Arsenal and Spurs will drop points between here and the end of the season. That's just the kind of teams we both are. Shame we couldn't just make more of a step forwards, but. Again, it will be how they bounce back from this. We've got a game home against Brighton. You'd hope that will be a good opportunity to just put that behind us and sort of carry on. We've still got the game in hand. Yes, it's against Chelsea, but we'll see. But yeah, overall, I'm going to try and keep a level head and just try and think positively towards the next game.
Yeah, that's all you can do, really, and take it back game by game. I agree with you. I think United were already out of it, but they've just ruined any chance of creeping back into it. If they'd won at Leicester, it might give them a 1% chance, but blew it as usual. And then, I can see a few United fans will probably win the next 2 games and they're like, oh, we're in it again. But I'm like, we're playing Everton and Norwich. But so I'd rather have no Europe than getting the Europa League or the Conference League. So in my opinion, it's 4th or 8th or 9th just to avoid being in Europe. And kind of try to do what Arsenal have done this season and just have 3 midweek a lot of the time, which would help them next season. But
yeah, I was going to say that actually, because that has been so helpful for us, and especially I guess it's a little bit different because we're quite a young team, or they're a young team, and that particularly since January and shipping Aubameyang out, there's not really necessarily, you'd say, one star player. In theory, obviously, Bukayo Saka's made quite a name for himself now, but it has been very much whenever we've had positive moments, it's always been because of the team as a collective rather than any specific players. And I think that does come from the fact that effectively we get all week to work on training and how Arteta wants the team to set up. So yeah, I think that would be huge for United if they're not going to get Europa, then to even like obviously there's not going to be a specific attempt to do this, but to sabotage your own league form and try and get out of the Europa, because that could be a really positive for whoever the new manager coming in is.
Yeah, well, yeah. If we're in the Conference League, it's just going to be a kids' tournament, isn't it? Really, like I don't think we're going to play any kind of decent squad in there. If we get in the Europa, they'll try keeping it just in case, because you get that Champions League spot at the end, don't you? So, Conference League, I can just see it being like an under-23s tournament for some of the United players if we're keeping that, but we'll see. Like you said, it's a big advantage, I think, with that. And I think I said it in the Discord last night as well. I wasn't surprised that Arsenal lost last night. I don't think they're particularly effective away from home. I even looked at the stats to back that up, and United have got a better away record than Arsenal. I was like, so that kind of sums it up a bit. Obviously, they're not horrendous. They can beat the lower teams, but I feel like I think even you lost to Everton back at like probably a month or even 6 weeks ago. I think any kind of crowd, you can really get into the Arsenal players' heads and just a bit of aggression back to them. They've kind of got like a soft underbelly, if you could describe it like that. But I just always think you can get at them if possible. You even lost to United, but I'm never particularly confident when Arsenal are away from home. Obviously, it's different when you're against like a Norwich or a Watford, but it's just one like. People were like, "This is a big shock result." I fully expected Palace to win that. I would have put money on Palace winning that game, and obviously Palace are on good form as well at the minute because they're in the semis of the FA Cup. So didn't totally shock me there. But yeah, like you said, I think it's going to be each week, isn't it? It's going to be swinging back and forth. I think a key bit might be that Spurs are going to head you on goal difference now. I think that's a thing to watch out for in a lot of the races, even relegation, even the title race. It could come down to goal difference. So it's one to look out for. Was there any other results over the weekend that really stuck out for you? I think the title race is kind of, as expected, pretty comfortable wins for each team. Anything outside of that for you?
Well, I think we have to call the Chelsea Brentford game really. That's obviously the key kind of. Like you said, maybe the Palace Arsenal wasn't as much of a shock as you maybe would think, and then that Chelsea Brentford game. Pretty crazy, really, especially at Stamford Bridge as well. You know, obviously Arsenal at the beginning of the season was subject to a Brentford, not thrashing, but beat at Brentford. But for Brentford to pull that out as an away performance was really great, and kind of just secures their place, doesn't it? Really, strange from Chelsea. It's probably easy in hindsight to kind of put it down to maybe a lack of focus, or maybe concentrating more on Champions League coming up. So whether that's actually the case, I doubt it is necessarily. I think it was just an off day for them, really. And they do seem to just struggle without their sort of recognised wing backs when they don't have Chilwell, when they don't have James. James only came on in the second half. Things just don't flow as well as they should. Very poor performance from Chelsea. And ultimately they are going to be pretty much safe in third, you would think, because like I said, even if they were to drop a few more points by the end of the season, I'm fully expecting Arsenal and Tottenham to do the same. So I don't think they'd be too concerned. Like I say, they'd probably be more concentrating on this Champions League run, really.
That would be my next question. Do you think Chelsea are safe in third? Because, well, obviously you lost, which gives them a bit of comfort, but I was just looking and you're actually only 5 points behind them and you've played the same amount of games, which isn't a million miles away. And I know you've got to play Chelsea. I'm not sure if Spurs have got to play Chelsea as well. I'll just having a look there. No, they've got United, and they've not got to play Spurs, but you've got to play them. Chelsea's fixtures aren't overly difficult. A lot of the difficult games are at home, which helps them as well. But it's just if they get distracted by the Champions League, isn't it, really? You never know. Yeah, they've got away at Southampton and then they've got you at home, which you never know. They could drop points in both of them. So
I don't see it, to be honest. Like you say, we are worse away from home, and I guess it could come down to, because I think they play what would it be? Their FA Cup game before playing us, so that's maybe a slight advantage you could point to. But still, I would be surprised if Arsenal would get anything from that game. But yeah, you never know when it kind of gets to a point in the season. We spoke last week about there's actually quite a few teams that in other seasons gone by might be on kind of not really focusing on anything in the league, but actually this season there are quite a lot of still things up for debate. But Chelsea are one of those that are probably just in that kind of just in the middle, no real need to push forward or keep those behind. So yeah, who knows with the focus and attention more on the cup competitions.
Yeah, I think they've got that cup tie, which you said before your fixture, but then you've also got a league game that weekend as well, so there's not a huge advantage there. I think if you beat them at Stamford Bridge, then I think you could put in an argument that they're easily catchable. But we'll wait and see. We won't say that's going to happen straight away. Like you say, points on the table help, but never know, they might start resting players. If I can see in that Southampton game, if they've got to get a result with Madrid in that second leg, that they might kind of sacrifice that Southampton game to make sure they get through that. But we shall see. We're just trying to make it even more exciting, the top four race there, but we'll see. I was just looking down the results and I was like, there's no other really standout results that kind of stick out there for me, except for obviously that Brentford one that you've spoke about. Always good to see Eriksen on the score sheet as well. 4 goals, yeah. I don't think anyone saw that one come in. Yeah, because Brighton up to their own, the normal tricks, isn't it? Can't get the ball in the net. Leeds, Southampton, very even. I thought Villa were very poor from what I saw against Wolves. I've not particularly rated Gerrard so far. I don't know what your opinion is on Gerrard, how he's been at Villa so far, but I don't know how to describe it. I think he's trying to play like the kind of wing back. Well, he likes to get his fullbacks forward, but I think it keeps getting him quite exposed on like going the other way. And I'm not sure what you think about Gerrard so far.
Yeah, I think I would agree with your assessment there. As a Digne owner in fantasy, I can very much attest to the fact that they do get exposed very often, and tend not to keep clean sheets. And yeah, I don't know. It's probably easy to make this comparison, but I would put him in a similar bracket to Lampard and say that I can't see anything they're doing now giving them a platform to step up to a higher level job. It kind of feels like this is their ceiling at the moment. Whether that changes in the future, who knows? But based on the job they're doing at the moment, yeah, I don't feel like they're necessarily making a name for themselves to go any further. So yeah, I think it's probably quite underwhelming, really, both what he's doing and the team in general. But yeah, it's one of those things of being kind of in relative safety that it kind of. A loss like that doesn't necessarily matter in terms of threatening relegation or pushing for Europe. So I guess the only positive from that then is Wolves, because in their push. But yeah, well, I can't let you get away with not talking about the Man United fixture because we've not covered that.
Just trying to skip out that one.
so give us the lowdown on that. What did you make of the game?
I just wanted to skip back to your Digne comment. I was like, you've clearly been owning the wrong Villa fullback because Matty Cash has been doing pretty well. But yeah, it's not been clean sheets. That's definitely been attacking returns. I was going to say something else about Villa, but I think it's just completely gone out of my mind. But yeah, good result for Wolves there. What was it? Can't think what. I was a bit dubious about that penalty Villa got as well. It was very kind of touch and go, but I couldn't understand what it was given. It was one of those ones. Well, if I had Sarr and Cody on the pitch, I would have been a lot more annoyed about it than when they were sat on my bench. So let's just put it that way. But yeah, United. Can we just skip over that one? Yeah, there's not really much to say about them at the minute, really. I think first half was just there wasn't much from either team. We were probably slightly on top. Bruno had a decent chance. But apart from that, there wasn't much at all. Leicester had a few pot shots, but then second half, like United just didn't show up after this like half-time whistle, and Leicester were kind of all over us. Well, it looked like we was going to be on a good counter and then gave away the ball. Like kind of overexposed itself, thinking it was strange, the Leicester goal, because Leicester had a corner. We cleared it. We thought we was going to counter attack. Threw quite a few bodies forward trying to get on the counter attack, and then lost the ball, and then it left us exposed going back the other way, and just weren't backing at the back post, and just totally muddled us there. Luckily, the response was okay coming back with Fred, but apart from that, like, I wasn't even convinced we were even really going for the winner at the end. Obviously, Maddison had that goal ruled out, which, obviously, from a United point of view, I think it was a clear foul on Varane, because Varane would have just cleared it if he didn't get his foot hooked. I don't know if you saw that on the VAR check.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, it was a foul. But I wouldn't. You can't really complain if Leicester won that game 2-1, especially in the second half. They were just they were one team going for the win. Really, I think some United players are just don't know. Like, they're not bothered anymore. They just know they're getting a new manager, so they're like, what's the point in trying until we get a new manager in at this point? So, not good to see. And like I said, looking at your result now, if they've got a win in that game, they might have an outside chance of getting back into it. But I think a lot of players are just kind of down tools. And I don't know how McTominay still gets in the team. It's pretty shocking, really. Like, people put a lot of blame on Fred, but Fred has never been the problem. It's always been McTominay for me that's the problem. I'd argue that Fred has been our best player this season. Obviously, you've had Ronaldo scoring the goals and you've had De Gea making some wonder saves, but Fred has been up there, definitely in the top three, if not the best. But yeah, it's pretty shocking state at this point, and they just need to get the manager announced as soon as possible so they can plan some transfer activity and shipping some deadwood out. I know the likes of Mata, Lingard and Cavani will all be leaving on free, so that kind of gets rid of some deadwood. Obviously, it's more wages. You're not going to get any cash in for them, but it's been the same probably, what was it, about a decade now? Well, nearly a decade, where it's just all been spiralling, and it's kind of got to the point where I've just got to start again, I think, build around those solid players. Obviously, Bruno's had a new contract, but not a great time, so they've just got to rebuild from the bottom. We'll see where it goes from there. I don't think there's much more to say on that one. I don't know if you want to say anything else about that game or not, Charlie.
No, I guess just kind of almost linking it back to FPL, I think certainly, I'm staying clear of Man United. I mean, maybe some of the fixtures, and we'll come on a little bit later about some of these. I don't think there are any doubles for Man United, but in the 33 at least anyway. I'm not necessarily confident about going for any United players, but similarly, actually, Leicester, even though Leicester actually have a pretty good run, especially when you start factoring in these doubles that they've got. But the issue is, I think, just going to be a mixture of them being inconsistent and also the fact that they're still in Europe. That could be a bit of a cause for concern, and I'm not really sure. I think maybe I'd consider Maddison, but not really anyone else outside of him. So, yeah, from an FPL perspective, I don't think there's a lot to go from necessarily off them personally.
You're going to look forward to my transfer plan for this next game week then. No, but I was going to say you're going to guess something and it's not what you're going to guess. I've just slated Man United like that, and then you're going to see my transfer plan and you're going to be like, no.
That's an error.
I might even say it now just to prolong the agony throughout of it. I was going to say United do have a double game week in game week 33 as well. So United have got away to Everton in 32, and then they've got a double against Norwich and Liverpool. So I'm currently looking at the totally foolish transfer, which I'm sure I might regret, for this game week doing Salah to Bruno. Because Salah has got Man City and Bruno has got Everton. Bearing in mind the plan is to free hit in game week 33, so Salah could come back in. That is kind of one of those differential shouts for 1 week, and I'll be bringing in Bruno to captain him as well. So that's kind of the added bit. But we'll talk about captains later on, but I'll just put that in your head. We just slated them and I'll put that one in your head to think about as we talk about some of the things going through. But we'll see if I commit to that or not.
I can probably hear Sam laughing from here.
Yeah. I've kind of got to that stage of the season where I feel like that's the kind of punt I want to be taking, because the upside is huge compared to, well, obviously there's a big downside as well, but Liverpool, like, if any week I'm going to do that, I'd do it Salah away at City. That's my thinking, at least. Obviously, he can still score, but like, if he scored a hat-trick against City, then good luck to him. Like, that's fair. Like, that's just variance for me. Like,
do you know how much you'd be losing on that? Because presumably he's got some. He's risen since you've had Salah in.
Only a bit of value. I don't think it's a huge amount. Because I think I got rid of him at one point as well. I'd be losing 0.2. So it's not the end of the world for me, 0.2. But it's what I'm considering. But we'll see if I go through it. I'll go through with it or not. But
just out of interest, I was just looking, and in the last 3, Salah scored in every game against City. So just throwing that in there for you.
I can imagine Bruno's got a decent record away at Everton. I think last season he scored twice. So I've got that in my mind as well. You can put any fact in front of you and you can like kind of twist it your way, can't you? So it's just...
Okay, how about the fact that Salah's better than Fernandes?
Over the whole season, yes.
Just in general, as a player?
I think it's because he plays in a more attacking position. I'm not going to make comment. Yeah, he is the better player.
That's why, yeah, sure.
But well, I think if you put Bruno in like a City or Liverpool team, like you'd see how good a player he was as well at the same time. He's currently trying to carry some terrible players. But that's a different discussion. I don't doubt that Salah's a better player. But as a 1 week shout, I could see it working. Obviously, I could see it going bad, like a Havertz, Salah kind of thing we had previously. But just put it on the table, put it out there. You might have talked me out of it already, but we'll see how we get into it now.
No, I don't
think you have talked me out of it, so I'm just...
No, good. Yeah, I don't want to discourage you from being a bit differential towards the end of the season.
Yeah, and if there's, like I said, if there's 1 week going to do it, why not do it this week? That's what I'm thinking. Because it's going to be... My current plan will be to free hit in 33 and wildcard in 34. So there's no issue with me getting Salah back in either of those weeks if I need to. I wasn't really thinking about the value kind of aspect, but I'll deal with that. Watch it when I try to get my bench boost wildcard sorted and I'm 0.2 million short. I'll refer that to this moment. No, but we'll see how it goes with that. But I'm going to do, it's going to be literally a 2-minute quiz because we're used to doing quizzes in the middle, and then we're going to move on to kind of all that talk about Game Week 33, Game Week 36, because we had a lot of announcements for Game Week 36 and Game Week 37. So hopefully this will be nice and easy since you're an Arsenal expert. So you've got 2 very simple, well, I say very simple questions. So we've done this kind of format before. So I want you to name the top 5 FPL point scorers for Arsenal, but I want you to name them in order from highest points to lowest points. There are 2 players on the same points, so if you get them, like, I'll give you it whichever way you get it. So if they were 4th and 5th, I don't mind which one you say is 4th. If that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a test if I can remember from when we did this before.
Well, I think it's changed a bit. I think.
Well, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. And then there's a follow-up question as your little second one. I was like, I'll keep your brain ticking over even though we've not got a competitive quiz.
Okay. So top 5 FPL point scorers from Arsenal.
Mm-hmm.
In order.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure as of the last maybe 5 weeks or so, Saka is now top.
You can give me them in order and I'll tell you at the end.
Okay. So I'm going to go Saka first. You said there was 2 of them that were the same?
Yeah, within this 5, 2 of them have got exactly the same points.
Okay. Not that really helps me.
Yeah,
But
I'm not going to tell you which position they are, but there's two that are exactly the same.
It gives me if I'm not sure between two, then I can maybe say them both.
Yeah.
I guess Ramsdale second. So Saka, Ramsdale. Just trying to think. There's players that have done well, but then have also been injured through the season. Okay, yeah, I can just talk out loud, can't I? Because I'm not
you ain't got a hide from Sam this time.
Obviously, Martinelli did well for a period, but he has been out a lot of the season, so I'm not going to say him. I'll probably guess Smith Rowe. So whatever that is, third.
Okay.
And then I definitely don't think Lacazette's done enough to be in the top 5. So other point scoring positions, it'd be Odegaard, probably someone else from the defence, Gabriel maybe. I think Gabriel gets more points than White generally. I'm going to say Gabriel 4th, Odegaard 5th, because Odegaard's had a bit of a resurgence later on, but didn't do so well at the beginning. So yeah, I'm going to say Saka, Ramsdale.
Yeah, I've got them. So you've got Saka, Ramsdale, Smith Rowe, Gabriel, and Odegaard.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't know Arsenal as well as you thought you did.
Well, specific point scoring in FPL, maybe, yeah.
Saka is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a joint for second, so Ramsdale is one of them. So you've got 1 and 2 correct. I'll give you that. Gabriel was third. Well, joint with Ramsdale on the same points.
Oh, interesting.
Because I'm pretty sure he's got a few goals, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Which will have added in there. So they're both on 118. So yeah, Gabriel third. You put Smith Rowe third, but he's actually fourth after those two. And Odegaard's not in. Odegaard is 7th. So any guess who would be 5th? If Odegaard is 7th?
Would be 5th. Oh, Kieran Tierney.
Yeah, he is 5th.
Of course. Generally, in my mind, I've discounted him because I'm taking him out because he's injured. That's the reason why I wasn't even thinking about him.
I know you said Martinelli. I was like, I haven't even got Martinelli on this list because he was like quite far down. I think he had 70,
I
80 points.
had him for a run of good, like a few goals in a row. But yeah, he was.
Yeah, and Ben White had more than Odegaard as well. So then your follow-up question. So if you took Arsenal's standard starting 11, ignoring Ramsdale. So when I say normal starting 11, that is your first choice 11, which I would class as just for like covering this here. So I would say Tomiyasu, Tierney, Gabriel, Ben White, Xhaka, Partey, and I'm going to put Martinelli, Smith Rowe both in there. I know they can rotate. Martinelli, Smith Rowe, Odegaard, Saka, and Lacazette. So, well, that's actually 11 outfield players then. So out of your 11 outfield players, which of those 11 outfield players has not contributed an attacking return this season?
Has not contributed?
Yeah, so 10 out of 11 have. One of them hasn't. I thought that was a bit of a different question.
Who has not contributed?
So not got a goal or assist.
Well, my mind jumped to Xhaka. That's not my answer yet because I'm just going to think it through. I'm trying to remember if he did anything attacking wise. Maybe Tomiyasu as well. He's a similar bracket. He's not very that adventurous. Like I said, Gabriel scored.
I gave that one away a bit, didn't I?
Has Ben White scored? Not that I remember. There was a bit of a scramble at the goal mouth, I remember, for one goal we scored, but I can't remember whether he was... I think he was on the line. It was whether he was offside or not whether he was playing it, so he could be an option. I'm pretty sure all of the attacking players you mentioned must be in there. So it's one of... I'm going to assume Tomiyasu probably got an assist somewhere or other. So I'm going to guess it's one of Xhaka or White. I think Partey's got something. So yeah, Xhaka or White. I'm going to go... Oh wait, attack. Oh, you said out there. I was going to say, like, this is a trick question. It's going to be Ramsdale. Although he could come close to an assist sometime.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on the logic that... Well, maybe this is flawed logic because Ben White would come up for corners, but Xhaka is in general in a more advanced position, so I'm going to assume he's picked up something somewhere or other. So I'm going to say Ben White.
That is correct. Yes, obviously all the attackers had a lot. Tierney had quite a few, Gabriel had quite a few. So you were right to narrow it down to those three players. And Xhaka and Tomiyasu have both got one assist each. I remember Tomiyasu's one because it literally squared it across the area, I think, on the edge of the area, and I can't remember who put the ball in, but I don't know, it was Erdegaard or something. And I can imagine Xhaka's was probably very similar, where we just laid it off to someone and then they went on.
Yeah, they did all the work.
Yeah. When I was looking at Arsenal players, I was like, that's a good question, to be fair. It gets you thinking a little bit. And I don't think you necessarily think Xhaka and Tomiyasu would necessarily always get an assist, because I kind of had it in my mind that Ben White seems to, well, he tends to be involved in set pieces, but he's not particularly threatening from what I see.
Yeah, he's not that great, and yeah, he's better with the ball at his feet, but he does go up for all the set pieces, which is a bit strange. But maybe he's there for the second ball on the floor or something.
Yeah, and I remember Partey scoring. I think he scored a header or something, didn't he, a few weeks back? So I was like, I knew he had definitely got something. And I was just looking. I think he got a goal and assist in that game. I was like, that was the highest points he scored this season, which it made for a slightly interesting question. And to give a Champions League update, Liverpool are already 2-0 up.
Oof, nice.
Canate and Sadio Mane scoring for them.
Okay.
So, as expected, and City is still 0-0 against the stubbornness as Atletico Madrid. Well, I don't think either of those scorelines are particularly surprising so far.
I think the only surprising thing was that Pep hasn't gone for some mad formation or mix of players. It's seemingly a fairly straightforward 4-3-3, De Bruyne, false 9.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's only changed it. That really changed out Foden, hasn't he, for putting one of those guys in false 9. There's a lot of midfielders as you wouldn't normally expect from Pep, but we shall see if they can get the breakthrough at some point. You'd hope if they're going to get through that they'll do something in the first leg. Because, well, Atletico are just stubborn, aren't they? They can grind you down at some point, you never know.
Yep.
But right, so there's your little quiz. Bang in the middle. We've always got to have some kind of quiz in there, haven't we, really? So we're going to move on to talking about kind of strategy. Like, I feel like a lot of the pods now are just going to be like looking at the rest of the season, strategy kind of based. Talking about chips, talking about like double game weeks, utilising the best strategies to get the best outcomes going forward. So that presents the question to you, Charlie. We'll start by kind of putting it out there, kind of what we're thinking at the minute, and then we'll go a bit more into the game weeks. So from what you told me before the pod and what I remembered from the last pod, to be fair, you've only got 3 hit remaining. Is your only chip to use? Before we get into the game weeks, is there a certain game week that you're currently eyeing up to use that 3 hit in there?
Sort of. So I think my rough plan last week was aiming for 36 to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily, because I think my team's fairly well set up to play out the rest of the season. So that's both through 33, 36, 37. So really it just comes down to when I think that will make the most effect for me. And my argument for 36 was that's likely probably going to be when people who still have a bench boost use it. And so then that just helps me kind of counteract some of the extra points they're gaining in that week. But really it will just come down. I think it will also just depend on how my team's looking in those particular weeks. I'll be quite happy to be flexible with it. And if I actually think that my starting 11's perfectly fine, I'd maybe only make, 1 change one or two changes with the free hit, then I'll look to save it, because I don't. Even if I got to 36 and didn't want to use it in 36, I could probably quite happily use it in 37, or even on just the final day 38 blowout, just for a bit of fun on the last day. So roughly 36, but yeah, keeping flexible in case I need to sort of change my plan or pick up a few injuries here and there or something.
Yeah, I think especially because you've just got that one chip left, it allows you to be flexible, doesn't it? Just because, like you said, you can leave it flat. I think you just leave it there for 36, and then you've got 3 game weeks left to choose where you use it there. Like kind of when you're in my situation with 3 chips left, free hit, wildcard, and bench boost, you've kind of got to plan it more, because otherwise you just won't get them all in time. So there's got to be a bit more structured approach to mine. So like I said, I've got those 3 chips left. So my current plan is to free hit in game week 33. Wildcard is probably 34. I don't know. It's got to be 34 or 35. Ideally, it'd be 34. I'm just want to keep an eye on fixtures and stuff that's going on around that time. I'm pretty sure 34 we will know who is in the FA Cup final, who is in the Champions League semi-finals, from what I remember. So 34 seems like the difference between 34 and 35. I don't think I'm going to get a lot of information for 35 that's going to change any wildcard options for me. So I expect wildcard 34, and obviously I get an extra week's benefit. And then bench boost in 36 is the idea. Currently, it's going to be a fun few weeks, that's all I'm going to say. There's going to be so many different drafts going about. I'm like, am I on a free hit? Am I on a wildcard? What's going on? It's just going to be complete carnage. So if we start using the logic, we should do it in order. If we start with 33, so like I said, I'm currently thinking of the free hit, and my main reasoning behind this, and obviously coming from anyone who's listening, or obviously Charlie or anyone else's viewpoint, it's a lot to do with obviously how your team looks. A key part of why I think using free hit is best for me in 33 is obviously I've got those other chips left, but I also have quite a high proportion in my team of Wolves, Villa and Leeds players, and those 3 teams all blank in that week. So it's kind of a funny game week, because there's those 3 teams that blank and then some that double, which is a bit of a mismatch of kind of different things going on there. So I think at this point, I think I have to take a -4 or a -8 to even get a full 11 out, which obviously isn't ideal already. And then some of the assets I have, I don't think can maximise my return in that week. So I will be looking at. I'm currently on the very out there strategy of just ignoring all single game weekers and just putting all double game weekers in there. But I'm sure I'll change when it gets to that drafting, which will actually only be next week. So next week I think we'll have to all have a go at drafting some teams. Even you two who aren't on a free hit, Charlie. So I think we'll all have fun with that one, drafting that next week. But I think my team might be a bit more out there than you guys when it comes to that. So I think definitely for me it's team dependent, going for that. And I think I'll take some punts on some double game weekers. So, well, I was going to say as it stands, but game week 33 won't change unless there's like some kind of random like COVID outbreak or something going forward. So in game week 33, we've got 7 teams that are double at the minute. So you've got Arsenal, Brighton, Burnley, Leicester, Man United, Newcastle and Southampton. I was looking at the fixtures before this. For my reference, I'm just ignoring Brighton entirely, because I think Brighton have got Liverpool and Spurs. And I don't think Brighton are great assets the best of times, but definitely for those fixtures, I won't be looking at Brighton. So it's kind of down to those 6 teams for me when it comes to having a look at the free hit for 33. With me saying that, Charlie, how are you lining up for 33 currently? Have you got many double game weekers? Are you looking to get any in over like 32, 33 on your transfers?
Yes and no. I mean, I think 33 suffers from the same thing some of the previous doubles have had, where the best fixtures aren't necessarily with the teams you'd want them to. So Burnley have West Ham and Southampton, and who else would you say? Newcastle with Leicester and Crystal Palace, maybe you could say is a pretty decent fixture. So
Yeah.
I don't really want players from those teams. So I'm not necessarily going to target maybe someone attacking wise from Newcastle. You'd think maybe St Maximan if he's playing or something like that. But none of those fill me with much excitement or a great chance of doing anything better than some of the more well-known assets from the teams that only have one game. So say, for example, Man City have Brighton at home that week as just a single game week. Now, I can absolutely see them doing well against Brighton and most of their players scoring better than some of the double game weekers. So for me, at the moment, I've got my triple Arsenal, but Tierney's going to make way, maybe for White, with a view to just having the extra game. Although, like we said earlier, I don't expect anything. The second game in that double is Chelsea, so I don't expect anything necessarily from that. And I've also got Broja from Southampton, so again, he plays in the double. Then, other than that, it's mostly just because I've tried to just focus on the big teams. I've got those big teams in I've got the single game week. The only one who I may target to bring in, and this is with depending on how things look, but obviously, like you said, Leeds have a blank that week, so Rafinha may come out for Maddison because their prices are pretty similar, and Maddison could just stay in there for the rest of the season because, like we'll come to, Leicester do have more doubles coming after that, so that could make sense. But again, it will all depend how their European fixtures go and things like that. So yeah, I'm not that fussed, and it hasn't really changed any of my plans in general. The way these doubles have fallen, I'm pretty happy just sticking with the reliable players, regardless of whether they have a single or double game week.
Yeah, I think that's where it's going to be the difference, isn't it, between like free hitters and non-free hitters, because there's going to be a lot of strong single game week players, which, like for example, you would keep hold of, and obviously you're banking on them doing well, and then it's how far do the free hitters go with trying to put players in there that got double fixtures, and they might not even outscore. Like for example, a Cancelo could easily outscore, for example, like a Dan Burn, like even if Dan Burn's got an extra fixture. So it's going to be kind of, do you go all out with a double game week if you're on a free hit, or do you just put quite a few single game weekers in there and just trying to maximise the quality of players you've got in there instead? But it's going to be one of those ones that it's kind of high risk, high reward, isn't it? It can either go fantastically or go terribly, because like all the single game week players will do well. But I think going back to one of the points you said about game week 33 being like kind of teams you don't want to target in general. So that's kind of my thinking of why I'd be free hitting, because I don't want to. Well, obviously I've got a wildcard to use anyway, but like your Newcastles, even your Man United, etc., you just got them for that 1 week, so I haven't got to worry about having them later down the line. Rather than when you get to 36 or 37, I feel like we'll touch on them in a second, but there are a lot of teams that you'll probably have around your squad anyway, like your Liverpools, your Chelseas, etc. So I don't know what your opinion is on this, Charlie. Obviously, you're not in the same situation, but if you had the same chips as me, I think that's probably the optimal way to use them, by free hitting this week. Obviously, I think in a different scenario, if I had a better team lined up for game week 33, I might have saved the free hit for later in the season, like 37 or 38. But I think the way it falls for me, I'll be going with that. And it's risking it on that game week 33. I'm confident on the rest. It's just there's a lot of risk in that game week 33 for me.
Yeah, I think I would go the same way that you're going. I think because you're using your wildcard that late enough that you probably won't end up needing the free hit in 37 or 38, because the team, obviously you're aiming with the team to build for a bench boost in 36, but you can still cater for the games in 37, and a lot of the same teams have doubles in both weeks. So yeah, I think I'm with you on that play, and that makes the most sense to me as well. And the point, like you said, about some of these kind of one-off good fixtures in 33 that maybe you wouldn't want to carry into the rest of the games. It does provide that little bit of an advantage. It just comes down to how those single game weekers from the teams like Man City, Spurs, Liverpool do up against the teams with the double fixtures.
It's going to be fun next week, that's all I'm saying. It's like one of those where you just have fun doing like random free hit drafts. And well, especially it's going to be like back-to-back weeks, isn't it, where I'm going to be doing a free hit draft and then a wildcard draft. It's just going to be like, it's just those moments of the season you enjoy just getting like 50 drafts. But I've got 6 teams that I'm looking at to double, so I guess there's not as many options. But I'm going to get quite a few of them in there, I think, because I'm just looking at it now. So United have Norwich and Liverpool in the double. It's one of those ones, isn't it? Because like they could easily win 5-0 against Norwich, but then get smashed by Liverpool. So you kind of, it's Norwich plus 2 points in my opinion, but you're just banking on that Norwich game going well and how much you trust United in the first place. So I think a lot of people will be keeping an eye on how United do against Everton. If there's a bit of improvement in that game from United, I could see a lot of people jumping on United assets for that 33 just because they've got 2 fixtures, even though the Liverpool game isn't good. I can see a lot of people jumping on that. Don't be surprised when you see Bruno and Ronaldo in my free hit team next week, Charlie. I'm just warning you, because there's not many times in the season I've wanted United players in there. So I think the perfect example is a free hit where they're not there next week. I remember that, I think it was on my first wildcard where I brought in like triple United, and then there was a COVID outbreak. I was like, for God's sake. It's like, of all the chances when you go triple United, you get a COVID outbreak. And I think that's when I used my own free hit, because I was like, I've wildcarded into these United players, and then there's a COVID outbreak and they're not even playing. So I was like, I'm not wasting my wildcard by transferring them all out again. So hopefully I don't have something like that again.
I think one thing as well that I'd add, this is going to play into your strategy, is to consider the FA Cup games as well, because Liverpool and Man City are playing each other in the FA Cup semi-final, and that's the equivalent of where Man United had that Norwich fixture. So you'd probably expect Liverpool and Man City going toe-to-toe in that game not long after they went toe-to-toe in the league as well. And take the distance. So it's fair to say that Liverpool may be coming into that game against United kind of under fitness, where United may have had, and that's a big may, but may have had an easier game against Norwich. So that is a positive that would maybe make me consider it. Particularly on the free hit. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a good point you make about them, because it's a bit strange, isn't it, how it falls with the FA Cup kind of games, because they're within kind of game week 33, so like the weekend where like you've just done the perfect example, like United will play Norwich, so City and Liverpool will play on that Saturday, but then the fixture on the Wednesday is in game week 33, so I'd wonder, I'm not sure how the schedule falls, because I'm assuming they'll have a league game the game after as well. I was going to say that it might be a game where they'll rest a few players depending on what fixture they've got. I think City have got, is it Brighton they've got in that week? I'm pretty sure from what I saw.
City have Brighton in the midweek, the same time that you play Liverpool. They play Watford at the weekend. Liverpool play Everton after you.
Yeah, because I was thinking, like, that's not a bad game. Well, you could argue even Watford's not a bad game to rest players, is it? Because if you think City like playing against Liverpool and then playing against Brighton next, like, is that a perfect opportunity to rest Cancelo, for example? But obviously it's speculation at this stage, and it's a bit. Obviously, any player can get injured in a double game week, but you can imagine like a Liverpool or a City player getting injured in that first game, for example, and they're not even playing in the game week. So it's a good point to make about those cup games, and that's what I was saying about the wild card. At least when I'm doing it in 34, like they might have not announced where the other fixtures are going to go. The few that we've got hanging over, I know we've got a few like Chelsea, even Leicester fixtures, isn't it? I think that are still to be put in there. I think the City, the one that I've been watching out for, because City have got a fixture that needs to be rearranged, which it's likely to go into 36 or 37, and I think that could skew, for example, someone in your position, Charlie. Like if City doubled in 37, would that not tempt you to free hit in 37 and put them in, all of them in on 37, and then be out again?
Well, yeah, potentially. It's about how you maximise it, really. I was already looking at Man City for their nicer run, the Brighton, Watford, Leeds games, but like we've said, that they're surrounded by these tough fixtures. The FA Cup game against Liverpool, assuming Man City do get through against Atletico, although I think it's still 0-0 at the moment. The semi-finals are wrapped between the game week 34 and then so after game week 34 and then after game week 35, the two semi-final legs of the Champions League. So it's such a high number of fixtures, basically two games a week for the rest of the season. So it is one of those where you can maybe take advantage on the free hit to load up on 3 City players. It's a bit of a gamble, but 3 City players you think are most likely to start based on the information you've got right there and then. Whereas in my tactic, if I was just going to try and do it by transfers, I'd have to kind of plan ahead who I think is going to get the most game time out of the rest of the season. So yeah, it's kind of a longer term approach versus if I can try and target that one game week in particular. So yeah, it's one of those things that, yeah, it definitely would still tempt me, and that's why I'm trying to keep my mind open to being flexible and using it either 36 or 37.
Yeah, I think City is going to be one of those big dilemmas on the wild card, because I'm going to be like, do I want to, because they've got such a good run, but then like you said, with the fixture congestion, I'm quite likely to have a Champions League semi-final around those games. It's just picking the right one, isn't it? Especially because I'm trying to be set up for a bench boost. It's like, how many of those City players do I actually want to risk on? I think like the only safe route currently you'd be going forward, maybe obviously Cancelo, and then maybe Laporte, because obviously Diaz has been out for quite a while, and Laporte has kind of established himself as that first choice. But the midfielders is just a bit of roulette, so I'm keeping a close eye on the minutes of, for example, a KDB and a Foden, to see if they, because at the minute you've got kind of the same schedule, haven't you, where you're going to have like Liverpool, Atletico Madrid, like within the 3 or 4 day kind of time scale. So I'm keeping an eye on how people have been managed through that period, because it's going to be similar when it comes to that wild card and those few weeks after. Like, it seems like KDB, for example, might be back up to the kind of that fitness level they need to be. I think if you went back early this season or the last few seasons, he's had times where he struggled with his fitness, but he definitely seems to be like back up to fitness now. Obviously, KDB is a lot of money in FPL, but it's a consideration to have in there, and obviously you can move to anyone from KDB realistically, except for really Salah. But it's definitely one to look out for, City. Like, when I was eyeing up that 34 wildcard, City was always in my head because of how good that run is. I think you just mentioned it. Was it like Watford and Watford and Everton in consecutive weeks? I think in 34 and 35.
Yeah. It's Brighton, Watford, Leeds.
Is it Leeds?
But yeah, Watford and Leeds
Everton
from the 34 wildcard that you do. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, it's in my head to get them in there. I'm not sure how far Diaz is off fitness. I kind of like that Laporte shout if Diaz isn't going to be back, because realistically they could play Stones and Ake, but I think Laporte will be definitely first choice until Diaz is back. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Wildcard, we're trying to talk about double game weeks, and I'm trying to get wildcard in there as well, but obviously it all kind of ties in together. So I'm just looking at those other teams in game week 33 that have got a decent double. Like I said, I'm ruling out Brighton. You've got Newcastle to play, Leicester and Crystal Palace. Got Southampton against Arsenal and Burnley. You've got Arsenal against Southampton and Chelsea. I think you touched on that before, that is it really a double, but I don't know with Arsenal. Then you've got Leicester, who have got Newcastle and Everton, and you've got Burnley that have got West Ham and Southampton. Is there any like teams out of those 5 that kind of stick out to you there, Charlie, that obviously if you're in a free hit? Or I know you kind of mentioned Leicester, haven't you? Because I feel like when I'm looking at those teams, like, no one's really going to have a lot of Newcastle, Southampton. Like, if I got a Ward-Prowse in there and he scored 2 free kicks in back-to-back games, no one's going to have that. That's kind of one of those dream scenarios.
Yeah, I think trying to factor in both team form and fixtures, I think Leicester would be the one that draws my eye the most. But like I said as well, it's difficult both knowing which players from the Leicester team you want to choose based on the fact that they've got their European games, which is why I'm kind of thinking along the lines of Maddison, just because it feels like obviously he's kind of one of the key creators in that team, so it would make sense if they want to kind of keep playing him. But Burnley doesn't interest me at all, for the same reasons that I've talked about before in their run of doubles previously. I just didn't want to go anywhere near them. For both the Arsenal and United games, I see that as basically being like you said, the one game and then the +2 for the second game, which I don't expect anything from. Maybe someone like you say, like a Ward-Prowse, or just someone with the potential to get some kind of return. Arsenal at the moment giving away goals despite previous improvements in defence, so there's a potential for something from the Southampton game. But you'd certainly, Arsenal-Southampton game, but you'd certainly expect some kind of attacking returns in the Burnley game for Southampton. So yeah, I think those are kind of the key ones. Maybe, like I said before, maybe like a St. Maximin or someone attacking from Newcastle. Definitely not their defence, I wouldn't see. But yeah, you can probably just sense it in my voice. I'm not that excited particularly about any of these doubles. I don't think there's anyone that just springs off the page of being someone I have to get in. I don't think there's any certainties that you need to get in for that week necessarily.
Yeah, I was hoping Trippier was going to be back for Newcastle as a potential one to be in defence, but he's not likely to have much fitness if he's even going to be back in that time. But yeah, I don't mind the look of them Southampton fixtures, to be fair, because it's Arsenal at home. Which, if it was Arsenal away, I think I'd look at that a bit differently, but it doesn't look too bad. And kind of what you've touched on Leicester as well. I think before that game against United for Leicester, I would have been picking Barnes all the way because I just trust his fitness and he'll get more minutes. But Maddison just looked a lot more dangerous, and he's got the set piece threat as well. That's kind of one of the things I'm looking as well. I'm like, I'm eyeing up all these teams that have got a double game week, and I'm like, who takes the set pieces and that? Like, because that gives you more opportunity, doesn't it? Like, obviously I mentioned Ward-Prowse, who's got free kicks, pens, corners, for example. Like, you just need, even if he just gets one to return a game, it's still decent compared to what others could do. But yeah, well, that touches on the teams that are in there. But so you mentioned about transfers, Charlie. So I can't remember if you said what your actual transfers were going to be. So what for 32 and 33, are any of your transfers gauged towards this, or what are you currently planning for those 2 weeks before 33?
So before the Tierney injury, my plan was to leave him in and then transfer in Cancelo for that fixture run that Man City go on. But I don't really obviously want to get Cancelo in now for that Liverpool game. But because of the Tierney injury, I feel like and also kind of the situation I'm in now, which was the risk I was taking, but really trying to focus on my first 11 and have quite cheap bench options, is that really I've got to kind of take Tierney out now to make sure I can field a full team. So it's looking like probably Tierney down to someone within kind of around the 4.4, 4.5, 4.6 range. It may just be a straight swap for Ben White at 4.6, potentially just as a budget option. He's going to end up being my kind of bench defender anyway. I'd play him through this period and through that 33 double, but after that he's probably just going to be rotated because I'll aim to go quite big at the back with Trent, James and Cancelo. And then, either him or maybe like Connor Roberts from Burnley potentially, just really, like I say, just to play these kind of next 2 fixtures, and then they'll just sit on my bench for the rest of the week. So it's not really that important necessarily who it is, as long as they're starting, have all right fixtures in the next 2. And then that will leave me the money in the bank to finally get rid of Luca Digne and bring in Cancelo for the nicer run. And then, like I say, 33, probably with a view to getting rid of Rafinha and bringing in Maddison. But yeah, these things are still subject to change, especially that 33 one. Like I say, because I'm not that keen on anyone, there's no real like must-haves I can see from that week. It's not necessarily kind of locked in, because I'm quite happy to sway to someone if someone presents themselves maybe in the next week. But that's sort of loosely where I'm thinking.
Yeah, you just get rid of Luca Digne when he gets his good run back.
Well, that's the thing. But I feel like because I'm going to have the option of taking the free hit for when he does have the later double. And then I'm avoiding. I don't think he'll get anything away at Leicester. And they've got Man City as well. And yeah, I feel like covering that 36 week at least. If I wanted to go there, which I probably won't anyway, just having owned him for a while, that would be the kind of key area I'd want him for anyway. So yeah, it's not much of an issue getting rid of him for me.
Yeah, it might tempt me to keep my cash on the wild card now that I've seen Villa's potential fixtures. It's got a decent run and then potential to have a double there at the end, which is quite enticing. We've seen what cash can do before, but I'm sure now that I've hyped him up, he'll do terrible. They're kind of just one-off freak events, aren't they, really? You can't be expecting my cash to get like 28, 29 every double game week. Otherwise, it'd be a lot more expensive of an asset. But we can dream. That's why we have these players in a team sometimes. Right, so I think that covers 33 quite well. I think I've touched on my transfer ideas, that the rogue pick of going Bruno this week, and obviously I'll be doing free hit in 33, so I can make as many transfers as I want to. So I think that's will be a good focus of the pod next week. We'll get everyone to do a draft. Even if you two aren't on the wild card, no, on free hit. And I've got so many chips, it's like, but yeah, we'll have a go at that. Next week, I've just seen Benfica have scored against Liverpool to make it 2-1, which makes it slightly more interesting. Not good for my UCL fantasy team, but yeah.
I was going to talk about away goals, but of course that's not in play anymore, is it? So yeah, it doesn't actually give Liverpool that much benefit. But you know, if it going back to Anfield, if they can take at worst a draw back to Anfield, I'm sure they'll feel confident.
Yeah, I think they'll even feel confident if it's like 3-2 to Benfica. I think if Benfica got a 2-goal lead, then you think about it, don't you? But you always think on Anfield they can turn it around. So if we move on, obviously a bit further in the future, and we had quite a few announcements yesterday about around game week 36 and 37. I think we've kind of touched on earlier, and I think we've touched on earlier pods that we was always expecting game week 36 to be quite a hefty double game week, because it's kind of a game week that was kind of left with a free midweek. So if we had any issues throughout the season, or we had like postponements from FA Cup, the Premier League left this week in there, so it was always expected to be a big double game week at some point. Well, I say at some point, it's obviously in game week 36, but we were waiting for the fixtures to be confirmed. From looking at those game week 36 fixtures, Charlie, is the kind of certain teams or anything that pop out to you at that point, or the certain players that well, obviously we'll get past the 33, so like 34, 35, 36, that kind of period that you'll be working towards, because you're looking to get them in 36, 37. Obviously you've got that free hit in there, but just building towards those kind of doubles.
It's just more of the same, really. The 36 announcements, again, I don't feel like there's any that I really want to target. The best fixtures seem to have fallen for those that I'm not that keen on going in for. So I'd probably say Leicester have one of the best run or couple of fixtures in that double game week, Everton and Norwich at home. But again, like we've already discussed over and over again, not that convinced by the majority of their players, but having one going into that week would be fine. You'd probably say Chelsea from both an attacking team perspective, adding into that they've got Wolves and Leeds, so that feels like an area to go to. So I'd certainly be considering how I can move to Mason Mount in that week. I think just he's been so reliable for me when I've brought him in, and
not another hat trick.
Pretty much every. Go on.
I have to say, not another hat trick. After you had him in last time.
Maybe not, but I think just whichever manager he's played under, they seem to love. I think he's just one of those players that managers love having. He's just worked so hard. He just always gets consistently picked by whoever's managing. So it feels like a fairly safe choice. But yeah, again, like I say, there's not real big fixtures that call out to me. I guess Liverpool having a double helps. whoever it would have been against, I'd be happy to have 3 Liverpool in a double. They've got Tottenham and Villa, so that's good enough reason to get triple Liverpool, I think. And Spurs, who most people have a lot of, have the tough away game at Anfield against Liverpool, and then have the North London derby at home. So again, nothing really to get that excited about for me personally. I think what most people, or the kind of main players that most people have, the likes from Arsenal, from Chelsea, Man City, Liverpool, Spurs, I think again are just going to be the same players to keep holding on to, because I think they have the best combination of either a good fixture or just as a team have the better form and are more likely to return you points or be consistently returning points over that period.
Kind of in that thinking, isn't it, where with my free hit, for example, that I said, like, when I look at 36, it's not one of those game weeks to use a free hit, because you'll be free hitting in the similar players to you've got already, so it's not making a huge change to your team. And obviously I'm trying to get the benefit from using the bench boost. So I'm like looking at these fixtures and I'm like, what fixtures can I get like some value players out that are just going to sit on my bench and I'll need them for the bench boost? So I think the main question people have if they're on a bench boost is, what free strikers do I get? Because the strikers are pretty terrible. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, oh no, it's fucking Kucha and Timo Pukki time, isn't it? And it's like, there's slim pickings to choose from, because that's probably the main question, because I feel like defence and midfield are the places to be at the minute. You're not going to have an issue. It's really like your second goalkeeper and then your strikers. And I'm like, Ben Foster can do me a job if he's still playing every game. Like, Ben Foster on your bench, Crystal Palace and Everton aren't too bad. Even, obviously, I don't expect Watford to really get clean sheets, so you could go to like a Cash for Schmeichel, because you've got a few doubles to come as well. I think they could have. I think it's in 37. They've got one as well. Yeah. So Schmeichel doesn't seem like a bad option to have there as your bench boost keeper. He might even be my first keeper at that point. It's definitely because I'm looking at the bench boost angle of it. I'm just trying to find those value players. I think in terms of strikers, when I'm looking at them fixtures, the only ones outside of that would be like a Watkins or an Everton striker, but then you're still like punting on them doing well in that given period. And obviously, especially Everton, we don't see them do very well recently, so it's kind of punting on them slightly, aren't you?
Yeah, and the problem particularly with Everton, if you're coming at it from an angle like you are with the Game Week 34 wildcard, is that if you were to go for someone like Calvert-Lewin, Everton have Liverpool and Chelsea in that lead up to the 36 game week, so it's very difficult to see going for someone of his price. I think whether he's changed now, but he's around the 7.5 mark. You would probably have to bench him in those 2 weeks before the actual 36 where you'd make the most of it. So, I think it is probably one of these ones where you'd go with these budget teams. So you'd probably go for your pick of the Watford cheap strikers, so like a Dennis or a Cucho, and I'd maybe be tempted just to leave Kane in, even though those are two tough fixtures, especially the game at home against Arsenal. Kane does love a North London derby, and particularly at home, I can see him scoring against us. And then, maybe you just chuck in like none of these are very exciting options, but this is the kind of the situation we've had all season, really, particularly with the strikers, is there's not really been any standout for a consistent long period. It's always been just people coming in fits and starts. So, I think you probably just play it on the fixtures for that level of player, because you've not really got anything else to go on.
Yeah, I think my idea is probably to keep Kane, and it'll either be two budget strikers or a budget and a mid kind of striker. So it would be like Kane and then an Everton or a Watkins and then a Cucho or a Pukki, kind of cheaper down there. I think it'll come up to when I'm building it, because I feel like I'll probably end up with two budgets, or I want to get rid of Kane because I want to put money into midfield or defence. So that's a consideration. I think the thing about Kane is, you've mentioned that they've got a difficult game week, but the fixtures either side of that game week are really good, especially 37 and 38. I fantastic. I think one of them Burnley. I can't exactly remember who the other team is, but it's
It's
fantastic.
Norwich last game.
Yeah, there you go. I knew it was great fixtures, whoever it was. So it's kind of that. Do you just? He's got a double game week. Do you keep him through that? You may as well, like you said, in North London derby. You could even do something at Anfield if, depending on Liverpool situation. Well, I'm going to say depending on Liverpool situation, but I think even if both of them, like if Spurs are going for top four and Liverpool are going for the title, I think it would be one of those games anyway where they'll be chucking the kitchen sink at each other.
I think ultimately that it's going to come for someone like Kane in that week. It's going to come down to team structure and whether you want to go big in the midfield and get a few premiums out in the midfield. Because those fixtures are tough for Kane, even though he might score in probably the Arsenal game, I doubt he'd score in the Liverpool one. They're not strong enough to kind of convince that he needs to be in. So it's you have got potential to just go big in the midfield instead. But yeah, I think just because it's just a bit more balanced, and like you said, the two fixtures afterwards, I'd be tempted to keep Kane in, to be honest.
It's fun in games, that's all I'm saying. It's bad when you get into the point where you're like, what Everton players, what Norwich players, what Watford players do you need? The good old bench boost times where you want those value options. Yeah, because I'm looking at Villa as well. Because Burnley away and Liverpool at home is not the ideal double, but it's kind of one of those players that you'd want to hang on to, I think. But yeah, there's so much to digest in those 36 fixtures. It's just going to be, and they can all change a bit as well based on the FA Cup results. Because, like we mentioned, City could go into there. You could have West Ham and Wolves potentially go in there as well. So it could even change even more. So that's why I'm quite happy with the wildcard being 34, and when we've got those semi-finals and FA Cup final out of the way, and we know not out of the way, we know the fixtures. So we should hopefully have confirmed fixtures in every week. But when you look at that 36, there's going to be so many teams that are doubling that unless you get an injury or something, I should be able to field 15 players however I get around it. Even if I mention, like, if I end up just downgrading the goalkeeper to have Ben Foster, like, probably expecting 3 points from him, but at least he's playing twice, but that's probably not even getting me a good upside then. But it's going to be a difficult balancing the value, isn't it? That's the kind of differential you've got for yourself, that you don't have to put all the value on the bench, so you can focus your transfers, or even if you're free hitting, you can just focus on getting the best starting 11 rather than a 15 out. So you can see it from both sides there. Like I said, it's going to be exciting whichever way we go. And yeah, I think it's just all the European commitments and stuff that's messing us up at the minute. Like, you've even got Leicester, West Ham that are impacted by Europe. So hopefully it'll be clearer when I'm on that wild card. Did you take a look at game week 37 as well, Charlie? Because there is a few doubles that have been put there, which is currently Burnley, Chelsea, Everton and Leicester would all be doubling.
Yeah, I'm going to sound like a broken record. Yeah, and say the exact same thing. The thing is, it's because it's all these same teams really that have these fixtures coming in.
Yeah, all the European ones, or Everton or Burnley, basically, that we've had all season. Everton and Burnley coming out. Yeah,
we can just copy and paste my comments from earlier. It's the same thing. Regardless of fixtures, again, I think it's Everton, Leicester. Well, maybe Leicester because they have the Chelsea game in that, but they also have Watford as the first part of that double. So. Yeah, I don't think it's anything to get too excited about. I think you just play for the long term, play for if there's one good game out of the two in that, then that's fine, because the extra one's just a bonus, extra 2 points. So yeah, I don't think there's, out of those fixtures, there's anything to go mad about or need to get anyone in specifically for those. It's just like you say before about the potential for Man City maybe to have the double. Anytime Man City have a double, I think you need to get someone at least from their team, if not 2 or 3. So I think that would be the only thing that excites me. The rest of it, yeah, just happy to play based on week to week like normal.
Yeah, I think what tempts me into Everton is just that you see a double, don't you? And I think that 37, Brentford and Crystal Palace look quite nice as well. So in the space of 2 weeks, they'd have Leicester away, Watford away, Brentford at home, and Crystal Palace at home. Obviously, they're not firing at the minute, but if like a Richarlison or a Calvert-Lewin could show a bit of form, he might have a chance across those 2 weeks. But...
And you'd also probably say at that point they're still going to be fighting to get out of relegation or not be sucked into it, I guess you'd say. So yeah, there's definitely potential there. It's just about trying to pick your best player based on the value, because it is going to be tough, particularly if you go, like I said earlier, about if you're coming in with 34 wild cards, trying to look ahead to those weeks, you do have to get through the Liverpool and Chelsea with either benching or playing those assets. So it is, it's tough. But like you say, those fixtures are really good if you kind of forget that it's Everton. So I don't think it's out of question just to go get one of their players at least and hope that they do something. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't.
Yeah, I'm even tempted to just go like 2 budget strikers on the wild card, and then assess who is looking better out of Everton or a Villa player, and then you'll have like 2 transfers on 35 and 36. Which obviously I'm trying to maximise that bench boost anyway. So if I get any injury issues or think someone's in a better form, I can make that switch. So for example, that Calvert-Lewin situation, if he's got 2 difficult fixtures in the interim, obviously I can bench him. But if I wanted to make a quick change, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But hopefully you don't make a lot of changes when you're wildcard, but that is a possibility to see what the form is like going into those games. But like I said, there's so many things going on at once. It's just like trying to be flexible and then trying to maximise the potential at the same time. I think the Chelsea, Everton and Leicester double is currently baiting me into those teams. Like, you want to go for a double. And there's also potential like a Villa or a Palace could have a few in 37 as well. So if that happened, like Villa would have a double as well. So that's why I think, especially for the wild card and preparing for a bench boost, I just want these few questions that are unanswered just to be confirmed. And obviously we're closer to when I'll actually play the bench boost. So it's hopefully a little less uncertainty. That's all I'm hoping for. Just every manager just tell me a starting 11 before the game weeks, and then we ain't got to worry about it, especially you, Pep. Hope you're listening. But yeah, it's going to be a bit carnage, isn't it, those last few weeks? But it's what we love about it, really, isn't it? Was there anything you think we missed about that 36 and 37? I think we're going to go into it when we get closer to the time. So I don't think we need to cover a lot more about that now, do you?
No, agreed. I think that's as much as we can do.
Yeah, don't want to overdo it. Yeah, like 33 is a bit more in focus, so it kind of makes sense, and we'll have a bit more detailed look next week when it will be game week 33. Whizzing through them now. So that covers the majority. I just wanted to touch on for game week 32 your thoughts on the captaincy question, Charlie. I think this is probably one of the toughest ones we've had in a while, really, to decide who we're going to go for.
Agreed. So provisionally, when I first looked at my team ahead for this week, I put it on Kane. I do try to do that as a kind of routine of, as soon as the team's refreshed, ready for the next week, just kind of instantly, without trying to think too much about it, place it on the player that just feels most right. And then kind of see through the week how I feel about whether there's anything to back up going to someone different, or whether I just want to trust my first instinct. So it's on Kane provisionally with Rafinha as advice. I don't know. I do think Salah has the potential to get one, and interestingly, I've just seen he was subbed off at 60 minutes as well for Liverpool in the Champions League game, so clearly in preparation for the Man City game at the weekend. And he does, from memory at least, tend to be maybe I think there's some fixtures, maybe it's the United fixture he doesn't tend to score or something like that. I can't remember. But he does like games against City from what I can remember. And like I said earlier, he's scored in his last 3 against them. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a goal. I think it's maybe just the ceiling's probably lower than it is for Kane, who like we said earlier, Villa are conceding pretty heavily quite often, and if not goals, certainly number of shots, and Kane thrives off having number of shots. So I think unless there's anything to dissuade me, I think I'll leave it on Kane. I guess maybe you could shout for Son. To be honest, I'll probably need to look into that a little bit more, just about where Villa concede their chances from, and whether there's going to be more of an opportunity for Son to get in behind and Kane to drop a bit deeper, or whether Kane's going to be up front and taking all of these chances. So yeah, on Kane at the moment, but we'll see if there's anything that comes up during the week, whether there's any repercussions of the midweek games in Europe. But yeah, I think I'm comfortable enough putting it on Kane.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if the work from the ball down the wings and Son might not be a bad option. But like you said, I have to check out the stats for that one. Yeah, and you made that comment about Salah not liking scoring against United until the last game. Obviously, he took until he took all his aggression out, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I just need to catch up in this one." But yeah, my thinking was the same very much as you, that it probably would have been Kane. But then obviously I've mentioned about this Bruno possibility, so that is very much on my mind. If I should be going for Bruno, that is, like, I'm looking at the team. I don't, especially my attackers. I don't mind the fixtures we've got this week, like how my team's set up, assuming they all play. Like even Vegas has got Norwich, and I'm like, okay, we might actually see him do something. And then Rafinha against Watford's quite nice. You mentioned Arsenal earlier against Brighton. If Lacazette's going to get a return, he may as well do it in this game.
It won't be.
Oh, I'm hoping it's just going to be a penalty. And even Bowen, if he's fit after Europe, is away at Brentford, which isn't too bad. So I don't mind my attackers, the kind of fixtures they've got, but they wouldn't be getting captained. So I think it would have been between Kane and Salah. But I'm tempted to swap Salah for Bruno and captain him. That's going to be a... yeah, it's thrown me off now that you've said... Well, I saw it as well, that he came off at 60 minutes, Salah. So that is another one to throw in there just to confuse me completely. I've just seen that Man City have scored as well.
Yep.
The man KDB. It looks like Foden straight off the bench assists. Show Pep that he should have started him, really. But yeah, I think that big dilemma for me this week is clearly that Bruno one. I think I'll be messaging through the week like, shall I do it? Shall I do it? It's a Friday deadline as well, isn't it? So it's going to be... everyone said don't captain in the early fixture, but it's not the earliest fixture because it's not on Friday night. So I don't know. I might bottle it, but I want to do it. So I probably will do it. I'm thinking at the minute.
Well, yeah, and Bruno in an away fixture used to be the go-to captain, didn't it? Probably last season would it have been?
Yeah.
Maybe the season before.
The thing is, I think Ronaldo's going to be back, so he's not going to get the penalties.
Yeah.
But it's a bit of a funny one because he tends to get more returns when he doesn't play Ronaldo, but then I always think that if you just throw a random cross in there, with Ronaldo in there, you're more likely to get a return, but it's funny how it works, so we shall see how that one goes. Well, I'll either be laughing or crying next pod, that's all I'm saying. And you'll probably know what the emotion will be before the pod because you can watch the game and find out. But yeah, I think that kind of, I think based on what we've been saying about obviously City and Liverpool playing each other, we've kind of talked about Spurs, that kind of covers the fixtures for this game week. I don't think there's particularly a lot of standout captain's choices or standout fixtures really to target this week, would you say? There's not, like, you could argue Chelsea a bit, but like you don't know who's going to play. Arsenal, I think, is quite good, that was mentioned, but outside of that, is there anything that sticks out for you?
No, those were the two I was going to call out. I think at the Arsenal game, I don't think you would be confident enough in any of the Arsenal players to stick the captain armband on them. Similarly with the Chelsea attacking players, at least, I'm not sure. Like maybe a Mason Mount if I had him. Obviously, we can see how things go in the Champions League game, but if I felt confident enough that James was going to start that, he would be a definite consideration for me for captain because of how many points he does return when he usually plays. But it would just come down to I think it's just safe for sticking with those Spurs boys. I don't think I see anything really outside of that that's enough to persuade me away from Harry Kane.
Not Bruno then.
No,
I'm persuaded
because I would have to get rid of Salah like you're saying, and I don't want to do that.
I don't want to see that. Yeah, I think mine will be Bruno, captain, Kane, Vice. I would say locking it in, but we'll see. The Salah going off at 60 minutes might have thrown me, but we'll see. I'm sure I'll update you before the deadline how that one goes. But yeah, I think that covers everything. I think it kind of touched on everything, and obviously as we get closer to those game weeks, especially 33 next week, we'll have a deeper dive into some of them as well and have some fun drafting the different teams, especially for me. But yeah, I think we're done for today, Charlie. Thank you as always. We should be full complement next week because I checked and Liverpool play on the Wednesday, so we should be back fine on the Tuesday unless one of you decides to become a Chelsea fan.
Okay.
Exactly. Avoid. But thank you again, and thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you again next week on the next one. Have a great rest of your evening.